goal of this series of networking events is to encourage conversations between people interested in interprofessional education, to exchange ideas and share practice. So you don't have to wait till you're in the breakout room to start talking to one another. Use the chat, please. So on with the show. Today's session is titled Exchanging Ideas About Introducing Interprofessional Facilitation to Colleagues. So if you're not an expert, please don't leave us, because you're going to gather some gems from people who are trying their best to encourage their colleagues into the conversation. So we're going to value everyone's experience here. In this networking session, we will discuss the infographic constructed by members of AIPPEN before drawing upon your experiences as an IPE facilitator or someone new to it, because we really want you to discuss possible strategies to support your colleagues who are new to this. I've just dropped in the chat a link to our infographic, and I'm going to encourage everyone to open it themselves. That way I don't have to share my screen and lose all of your beautiful faces. I'm now going to ask my co-authors here today to introduce themselves to you and to draw your attention to one or two key features of the infographic to fuel your thinking before we head into small groups for discussion. So if I may throw it over to Lyn to start, and then Krista, and then Heidi, please.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see some familiar faces online. I was working at Flinders. I'm actually now working at UniSA, but I did my PhD on IPE, and so I've always had a very hot passion for IPE and quite a few experiences along the way. And I was very excited to be part of putting this infographic together. And did you want me to talk about my little... Yep, okay. So obviously all of that stuff on that PDF, you know, I have some sort of relevancy with, but the one that to me that stands out is to focus on the patient, because I think that if you make any activity designed to always put the patient at the centre, you're always going to get students collaborating or health professionals if it's not undergraduates or whatever, or postgrads. You're always going to get them collaborating together about, you know, looking at that patient. So that's my little tip for the day. Thanks.
Thanks, Lyn. Over to you, Krista, please.
Hello, I'm Krista Reed, listed as Krista Cockrell in the reference. And I'm currently using this infographic with a new set of facilitators as I'm planning an IPE activity coming up later in the year. And there's a number of different areas that are relevant, particularly in the planning phases, because we tend to have a lot of assumptions that we know what other professions do. And you really have to have all the professions involved in writing the IPE activity or developing the IPE activity from the get-go, because those assumptions can lead you down the wrong rabbit hole when you go in to actually facilitate the event, and then you're with students discovering that maybe you didn't actually know as much as you thought about how that profession operated or what principles guided that profession or how it may be. The other one that stands out just to touch on is being able to step back and let the students work out the problems themselves. And that is something that I find as educators, we really struggle to do, because we spend most of our time teaching, guiding, and directing. But when it comes to IPE activities, we need to allow the students the time to problem solve. So we need to kind of guide rather than to step in and give them the information or help them work out the problem. We need to let them do that and just kind of steer them in the direction that they need to head.
Thank you. Over to Heidi.
Kaya and kia ora. I'd like to just share one part that really resonates for me. I do a lot of interprofessional workshops with School of Medicine, Nursing Midwifery and School of Physio, and we often have simulation components, and the part that resonates is the modelling, the value of interprofessional collaboration and acceptance of diverse points of view, and also respecting in the modelling the interactions that are respectful. Because often what happens in our workshop is we have unintended things go wrong, and that's often an opportunity for the people facilitating to model how could we troubleshoot fixing up this thing or answering a question that the students throw us that feels like a curveball that we haven't anticipated. And in the moment, often you feel like, oh my goodness, I wish I'd prepared more carefully. But the reality is that when you're doing patient care, things come up, and it's about the modelling the teamwork, and often you notice the students' eyes are all on you with how you're going to do that. So for me, that just resonates. When things go wrong or unanticipated, how do you model the way that we work together as a team? Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. And have any more of our co-authors arrived, sneaking in? Just taking a quick look around. I think one of my favorite parts of our infographic is the questioning, and not to ask questions, really harshly to students. My favorite question is to say, why do you think that? Just to once again be that guide that Krista talked about, because there's really no time to teach new knowledge in an IPE session. It really needs to be about students learning how to solve the problem together. And I find those tend to be the most successful. If we have to teach them a lot of knowledge, we may not have targeted the right thing at the right time for our students. We've got some amazing experts in the audience today, so I think we're going to have an amazing conversation in our breakout rooms and also when we come back. Now, just before we head into the breakout rooms, I'm placing some questions in the chat for you to start considering. We want at least one AIPPEN steering committee member or an ANZIPE fellow in the room with you to ensure that you have a rich discussion. So first, always most important, one of our first principles of IPE is make sure everyone introduces themselves to one another. It's really important to do that so that we break the ice, we can build a little bit of trust. We won't be recording in your breakout session, so what goes on in that session stays in that session, unless there's something you want to share with us afterwards. So please share your name, how to pronounce it correctly, because we come from some very different places, where you work, and your interest or experience in IPE before discussing the other two questions. We hope that about 30 minutes will be enough time for you all to share ideas and get to know each other. So we want you to be in that room for quite some time. If you think your group has finished before time's up, feel free to all come back to the main room. And we'll close the other rooms if we have a few groups coming back together. Ideally, please ask someone to type some notes somewhere if your group is happy to summarize some key points so that you can share them back in the chat when we come back together. Or if you are a more verbal person, you'd prefer to say it, we'll have about 5 or 10 minutes at the end to have a little bit of sharing back if the groups feel like that. Are there any questions before we go into our breakout rooms? Jill, I hope you've had time to get everyone sorted.
We've got everyone sorted, I think. So I'll open the breakout rooms now and see you when you come back.
Yeah, have a great conversation, everyone. Welcome back. I hope everyone had as an amazing conversation as I had in my room. I'm going to encourage you to drop a nugget or two of wisdom or a pearl of wisdom into the chat so that whatever that aha moment is for you or something that you didn't realize. In our group, we had someone who thought they were the novice, the new person, and their questions really made those of us who have a little bit of experience really think hard and deeply about our practice. So please never think that just because you're new, you don't have something to add. Now, have we got something coming up in chat yet? Is there anyone who'd prefer not to type and to speak to us very briefly, because we only have about 5 minutes to do some sharing. Sue, can you tell us about why you feel icebreaker activities are so important to start with?
Oh, it was just something that came up in our chat room about the fact that it allows students, it sets the scene for people being comfortable to learn about each other and being curious, and perhaps you can do an activity that is not based on people's professions, but simply an activity that allows people to get to know each other and start to feel comfortable to talk in that space.
Thank you very much, Sue. Charlie or Charlie, sorry if I've said your name wrong. Can you tell us about the staffing issue that your group discussed, please?
Sure. It came up because within our group, we had people who are developing services as well as developing education, and that, you know, the commonality of needing to involve the appropriate people and to allocate and to have that resourcing to have representatives from each profession if you're going to truly have interprofessional education, and to have that really from zero.
Thank you very much. Kelly posted something about thinking about how to transfer knowledge from IP into clinical practice or placement. Why is that such an important ingredient in successful facilitation, please?
Well, we started discussing it. We didn't get Karen's final little space, but we thought it was a good idea of how do we, you know, we kind of create these little bubbles of activities. And Karen had just started to sort of discuss about, well, thinking beyond, and how, what does the learning go beyond what your little bubble activity is to when they're actually seeing interprofessional in the workplace, and what does that mean to the students?
Fantastic. And I'm going to dob in Mary Butler, because she wrote the importance of reflection, and that might be part of the answer, Kelly. Mary, could you tell us why that's important, please?
I do think it's a very good carry on from there. We had some really nice conversations about the need for reflection, and really valuing the fact that it's in the infographic and even wanting it in more places within it, but also describing ways that we've done it in practice. So and the need to not just teach it, but and give opportunities for it in an ongoing way, given that reflection doesn't just happen immediately, it happens afterwards. So we described things like having sessions that are followed by discussion boards, so to give some of the quieter students the opportunity to have their input. We also described how we need to model it, how we actually need to show what reflection looks like. So there's a whole layers to how we manage the importance of reflection.
Thank you very much, Mary. And I have time to call on one other person, and I'm going to ask Eileen to speak about how do you deal with that difference in conflict in a group. So I'll give you about 30 seconds, and then we'll have to start our wrap up. Sorry, I can't get to everyone today. Eileen, are you out there? I can't see you on the screen. There you are.
Thanks, Megan. And it wasn't me that raised this, but I thought it was such a good thing to raise. It was within our group. And the sense of embracing this, not being fearful of it, because in a way that it's kind of modeling what happens in practice, that not so much conflict, we hope, but there will be difference of opinion in clinical situations, and the importance of learning how to manage difference within an interprofessional group is really important. And Lyn, of course, mentioned that technique of phone a friend. Like, you don't have to always resolve something or come to a consensus within an educational setting. You would with a patient, of course, but within an educational session, it might be appropriate to say, well, should we all go away and have a look at this? Should we look it up, or should we ask someone and come back to you on this? Or putting a pause on it, but also allowing the fact that difference may occur and allowing students to express it without trying to feel anxious about it as facilitators, which is probably much easier said than done.
Thank you very much, Eileen. And I'll give 30 seconds to Anne because she's politely been waiting with her hand up before I do the wrap up. So Anne, in anticipation.
Thank you. I was just going to follow on from that point of taking the continuity into the clinical setting. And I think that what we can do in the clinical setting is help. So if we're talking about IPE in terms of learners, so undergraduates, we can help them in that setting to develop a sense of dual professional identity by role modelling and by giving them purposeful IPE experiences, such so that they develop a sense of themselves as a health professional, but also a sense of themselves as a part of the health professional team and an understanding of what the role is in the team. So that's about continuity from the uni into the clinical setting. Yeah.
Thank you, Anne. I know this is the tip of the iceberg of conversations, and I hope what we've illustrated to you today is the infographic should not and does not have all the answers, but it's a great vehicle to start a question, especially with someone who's new. As we know, there's no way to just say, here's the answer. We have to walk hand in hand with people when they're new. And just like we make students feel safe in our IPE sessions, I think we have to take that care to our colleagues who are new to interprofessional facilitation. We have to make them feel like they're part of a special family. And I think that's the way that Dale Sheehan and I know that Avril Lavigne have been able to create these amazing nexus of people around them. So bravo, everyone. Just before we wrap up, I'd like to thank the guest facilitators, Lyn, Krista, and Heidi, who helped introduce the infographic, and to all the breakout room facilitators, all of you AIPPEN steering committee members and ANZIPE fellows, people who led the charge in your group. Thank you for making that a really great conversation. Behind the scenes, I need to say thank you to Jill Romeo and our new office member, Kendall, who's learning the ropes today, for their assistance. We could not do this without the support from ANZIPE to host this event. And ANZIPE is very, very proud to support AIPPEN. Our next session won't be until September, because Fiona Kent and I are supposed to be both on research leave. So we're waiting till we both come back to offer you a bang Zoom one at the end of the year. And if these are really popular, we'll try and have more of them the next year. And finally, I'm going to ask Jill to drop in the evaluation. We really care about you and your experience and your feedback. Today's goal was to encourage conversations between people interested in interprofessional education, to exchange ideas and share practice. We want to know if we hit the mark with you or not, and what we can do to improve, because we are educators just like you, and we really care about what we do. So please take it's just 5 or 6 quick questions in a Google form. And we really hope to see you in the future. And those of you who have things to share, we really want to build that in. And we'll see you next time.